The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of CNS Channel 6.
Hello again, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you for joining us. Last week we had a really big program. I know the feedback was good because everyone is getting excited about, even people who are not party members are getting excited about the People's National Congress Reform's upcoming 20th Biennial Congress. Of course, as you know, it's going to be on the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th. And one of the aspects of that Congress that really is creating a stir, and I'm going to repeat this, especially for those of you who did not tune in last week. A group of young persons in the party, not necessarily only from the GYSM, of course, some of us really and truly are indeed products of the GYSM, but there are a group of young persons in the party who have decided to push the youth faces and to, in a sense, capitalize on youth positivity and youth energy and try to put that out there, because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, the legacy that we depend on our elders to pass on, we will not be able to take that and run with it and do things substantive for our party. Last week, you know, I had a conversation with Ms. Tandai McAllister, one of the young faces that would have accepted the nomination for party vice chairperson. And I also spoke with Ms. Annette Ferguson, the Honorable Annette Ferguson, who has also accepted the nomination for vice chairperson, and she's also minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. I promised you last week once he accepted, and he is here, and it is my pleasure to welcome to Facing the Nation. Of course, he's no stranger to this program, and he's no stranger to television. The other youth face that would have accepted the nomination for PNCR vice chairperson, he is also the Director of Sport, Mr. Christopher Anderson Jones. Welcome back to Facing the Nation.
Thank you very much, Malika.
All right, great to have you. And viewers, I know most of you just know him as Chris or Chris Jones. I always like to stretch out the name Christopher and to put in the Anderson in there. Of course, when you're practicing and prompting and promoting people to greater things, because he's already one of the great young persons in our society. When you're doing that, you really and truly have to emphasize so that people will know exactly who he is. If he's sounding a little soft, you know him very well. He's usually on platforms screaming, but he has lost his voice, probably too much of that. So just bear with him today, but I know you'll hear everything that he has to say. First of all, Chris, congratulations on being nominated for vice chairperson of our great party. Viewers, I always remind you that this party is a giant. Congratulations on that, and congratulations on accepting it, because your acceptance tells us that you want to continue to be a good example for young people and to put yourself in a position whereby you can actually help young people.
That's correct.
Let's talk about what it means to you, and especially as a young member who have been in this party for years, what it means to you to have been nominated, and why you think that the time is now right for you, because I know you would have been nominated before, but why do you think that the time is now right for you to not only accept but to stay the course and see it through?
All right. Well, thanks again for having me, Malika. As you mentioned, I'll try to push the voice as much as possible. Having been nominated by members of the People's National Congress Reform throughout the length and breadth of the country, as well as in the diaspora, indeed, for me, it is something very heartening. And it says to me, essentially, is that those members and the people in the diaspora has recognized my contribution to the party over the number of years, my willingness to learn, my ability to get the job done, and somewhat whatever. I always dub myself as the having a stick-to-itiveness type of approach to achieving objectives of the party. I have accepted the nomination mainly because, as I mentioned before, is that you have contribution that you have to make to the party. And it is only by the party membership recognizing what you have been doing and your significant contribution and having them call you to higher office is that it is essentially the confidence that they've placed in me. And that is why I can't now turn that down, because it would say to them that I'm not serious about my pursuit in the party. And as such, I have accepted the nomination.
All right. Even before this and before Director of Sport, and viewers, we'll try to squeeze a lot out of him today and try to get him to talk about some of what has been going on and so on in the sporting arena and what he has done, since he has been elevated to that office. For a long time, your name would have been associated with the Guyana Youth and Student Movement,
Yes.
as you would have been once the chairman of the Guyana Youth and Student Movement. How has that prepared you for all of this?
It has, and that's why we often talk about people being grounded, rooted in the party, coming from the grassroots level. It is that you have a greater appreciation for when you're elevated to higher office of the task and role and responsibility that you have. There's a saying is that you can't necessarily talk about being poor unless you were poor. You can't speak about the struggle that the man in the street goes through unless you experience those. So my 19 years as of next month within the party, coming from the road, rising from the ranks of an ordinary member of the GYSM, give me those exposure. More so too when I started working in the public relations department of the PNC with responsibility for the then opposition leader, Comrade Robert Corbyn, is that at that level I was exposed throughout the length and breadth of this country.
Yeah.
So if I'm speaking to you, I can speak with some amount of authority because I've been there, right? That is why too is that, like, for example, when I'm speaking about in my office currently as relates to sport and spreading sports around to the outlying region, I can say to them that, look, if we're talking about doing sport development in Regions 1, you will need to go to communities such as Obadiah, Hotakoi, Sacred Heart, St. Monica, and so forth, the island. And I can speak on authority as relates to those areas because I've been there. And that is why throughout these 19 years in the party, whether it be picketing exercise, marches in the street, you name it, I've been there.
Yes.
I had those exposures. So essentially that is what equipped me to take higher office and give representation not only to the members of the party, but the Guyanese populace as a whole. Yeah.
I am happy that you talked about the fact that you called some of the difficult names of some of the communities, and you can not only call those names, but you can say that indeed you've been there. And I'm happy that you talked about that too, because are you confident? Because and there is some amount of confidence. Indeed, he did say that not only some of our younger members, but the older members obviously they all obviously have some amount of confidence in you, but because of your travels and so on and your exposure, and I like to bring up the other regions because sometimes we're in Georgetown and we're in Region 4 and we tend to center all our attention here and our minds, become close to the other regions.
That's right.
Do you believe that you have what it takes to pull the support? And this is not only at a party level, because eventually, and Chris is involved in national politics. We'll also talk about the fact that he once served as member of parliament. Are you confident that outside of party, you can pull the support and I'm going to use the word admiration because I did say you are a role model for many young people. Are you confident that you can continue to pull the support from all of Guyana?
I am confident that I can do so. In fact, in the current office as Director of Sport, in terms of what I've been doing out there and so on, it is the ordinary people from many outlying regions who would have contacted me, whether it be via social media platform. Excellent work that you would have done in there. I am living in whatever area. And I mean, outside of knowing that, it is only when they would have been in contact with me, indicated to me that we're watching, we like what we see that you're doing, keep it up and so forth, is that it says to me that, I mean, whatever I've been doing, it has an impact on the society, a positive one at that too. And persons have since essentially been encouraging me to continue in that pursuit. Just yesterday, I met with an individual, I don't want to refer to his name, and happens not to be a member of the PNC or involved in any political party of such, and happens not to be of the same ethnicity as I am. But he said to me that, you know, my mom, my dad, and I, we've been watching you in the work that you've been doing, and we want to encourage you to continue in that pursuit and keep it up and so forth. And it is often when I have those engagement with people, it gives me a sense of the persons in
like
the community.
Belonging, like the appreciation
of what you have been doing and so forth. So I'm encouraged by that. And that's why too is that even in the offices that at the level that you're currently at, you know, you have responsibility, but you don't have ultimate or full authority. And that is why rising the level is that you will be able to speak with more authority and get more done.
Okay, all right, great. Viewers, if you're now tuning in, of course, this is Facing the Nation. Today, I am chatting with one of the youth faces who is no stranger to you, Christopher Jones, Director of Sport. He is also one of the persons who would have accepted the nominations for PNCR Vice Chairperson. You know, our Congress is coming up, and we're very excited about that. In his case, I have to say vice chairman, you know, because we women get sensitive, so I use person generally, but because I'm talking to a male today, I can say vice chairman. Chris, member of parliament, I just mentioned, and it's just a reminder because sometimes we forget these things, just to remind the public that you indeed served as a member of parliament, and it was very short, and that is different because even before the formation of the APNU, we know there's a culture in the PNCR where once a young person is elevated to the level of member of parliament, they get a long time. They, you know, the situation, the political situation gives them a long time in the MP seat. So, you know, it's more than getting your feet wet. They actually get comfortable. However, in your situation, again, because of, unfortunately, our political situation, you had a short time as member of parliament on the APNU side. Has the short time in any way or shape daunted your spirit in terms of what you would want to do for Guyana, do for young people, and where you would want to see Guyana in the future?
It has not. It has not. I mean, the short stint in the National Assembly as shadow minister with responsibility for culture, youth, and sport is that it is what you do during that period of time, take in the necessary information and so forth. It has not daunted my spirit that no, I'm not a member of parliament, because I see my new responsibility is as equal as that or even more greater. So, but because of the exposure, the experience that was had there, I can better deliver in my current position.
All right. Can the people out there who are big fans and big supporters, and viewers, it's his right to answer this or not answer it. Can they expect, of course it wouldn't be in 2020, 2025, 2030, and we go down the line. Can they expect some sort of presidential statement in terms of presidential aspirations coming from Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Woo, wow, I like that. And the response just took me. I don't even have a comeback for that. Well, you know, you have especially the core of your, and viewers, I can tell you this, and I've been saying the same thing about the women I had on last week. There's a core group, and we have identified people who we know would have political aspirations, and this is not, Chris Jones is not somebody who's just out there, just having the support of people who maybe watch him on television and admire him. This is a young man who indeed has been in the party for a very long time, and there's a core group that will support. So, you know, you don't have to worry about, you may have the support, but the support is not inside of the party. It actually is in, and, you know, we will continue to wish him all of the best. Chris, let's talk about some of the, unfortunately, even before we get to sport, some of the negatives. When people, and this happened immediately after the 2015 elections, when people campaign on youth and campaign on the backs of youth, and some of the youth out there feel that, look, enough young people have not been elevated to the higher office that they would have liked to see. And people use this to say, well, the PNCR is just like the other parties. They don't push youth enough. How do you deal with such sentiments?
All right. It's somewhat of a bittersweet in terms of responding to it. Is that I mean, within the People's National Congress reform, there are those structures, those medium in which young people can speak at the highest level, whether it be at the Central Executive, General Council, Biannual Congress, and so on. So that medium is there. As it relates to the populace, the youth populace and so forth, and their expression, is that we encourage them that yes, even though you may not see several youth faces in ministerial position, it doesn't mean that the government, the information is not being filtered to the government in terms of youth's aspirations and so on. It is happening. But however, I mean, as I always pointed out, that in life and politics, there is perception and there is reality. And, at times perception speaks loud. And the reality is that those faces are not there. I would have been heartened too as well if indeed in the whole structure of things that you see more young people at those levels. I tell you why, and it's important to note, is that, and I genuinely I believe this now more than ever, is that at your age in life, you tend to make policies or decisions based on that. I give some persons an analogy, I hope I could do it very quickly, is that in a community unnamed, there was a space that some work supposed to be done in that space. So they did a consultation with the residents. At the end of the consultation, 2 weeks after, a signboard went up and the signboard says, coming soon, let's name Sunglass Village, Sunglass Village Burial Ground. So the villagers were up in arms as to why would you want to place a burial ground in the center of the village and so forth. So when they went back to the documents in terms of the consultation, they recognized that 25% of the persons who went to the consultation were between the ages of 18 to 31, and those persons wanted a sports facility. When they check again, there's another 25% of persons between the age of 35 to 47. They wanted a recreation space with play swing, slide, and areas to push baby stroller. The other 50% of the persons happens to be between the age of, at that time, 57 to about 79. And that percentage of the persons wanted that. Because essentially for them, at their stage in life, they don't see the necessity for a recreation space or a sports facility.
That wouldn't do anything for them.
Exactly. So indeed, ages do influence decisions that are taken.
But that is sad though, morbid that, and it takes you, this is eventually what human life will be reduced to. It's unfortunate. I would want to come off of that for a bit. Before we even wrap up our conversation, I'm going to get back to you as and your bid again for vice chairperson. But I know the support out there is great. But let's now talk about: do you feel you, as Christopher Jones, Director of Sport, that you would have been able to effect change and newness and improvement to our sporting sector in, I think it's 3 years, it's a little over 3 years that, you would have been Director of Sport?
All right, yes, I have been able to, and the department that is, been able to make an impact as it relates to the landscape of sports, access to facilities, athletes having the opportunity to represent the country regionally and internationally as well. However, I for me personally, on a scale from 1 to 10, in terms of what I had set out to achieve between the stint, I am lagging behind. Several factors would play a role as to why that is so, but indeed the impact has been made. I mean, it's almost on a daily basis. You open the newspapers, you see our athletes wherever they went, because the opportunities were given
and that
to them.
really is fairly new for us as a country.
Right, exactly. So we have been able to create an enabling environment in which our athletes can go forward and do better. But for me personally as director, is that I would have wanted to achieve much more than that. Much more than that.
Chris, as I speak to you, there is, and I just wrote the word down so that I wouldn't forget. Sometimes, and the younger folks, the very young folks do this, our age, the a little older and the very older folks do this. And I'm talking to you and I'm hearing some amount of humility even as you speak to the fact that, look, I am here, I'm Chris Jones, I'm confident, and if you vote for me and if you support me, this is where we will go. And with all of that and with all of this light on you, and this is even before your bid for vice chairperson, it is easy to become not just arrogant, but in a sense out of control.
Yes.
And you're bigger than the world and you're better than everybody and so on. How do you balance all of that exposure with, at the same time, still remaining humble and keeping your feet on the ground and understanding that life is still about saying please and thank you and waiting your turn and going through the proper processes? Sorry. How do you still remain humble?
All right. I'm firmly of the belief, and this is how I operate, is that in whatever position you are in authority, or whatever position you are in general, is that you must understand is that you are standing on the shoulders of someone else. Is that you have not arrived at the position that you currently are by yourself. You didn't wake up one morning and decide, well, look, I will be a minister, I will be a president, I will be a director of sports and so forth. There are people who would have advocated for you, voted for you, supported you, and so on, to get you to where you are. And as such, you are standing on their shoulders. If you forget where you come from, you're very quickly to fall back to the water. Because imagine if those persons remove that shoulder because they got you there, is right down you're going. So that in itself always, I always keep reiterating to myself and many of my comrades within the party is that all of us are riding on the shoulders or the backs of people, the ordinary man out there. And that is why it is opposite to believe that you can carry on somewhat of a lavish life, live the lifestyle, while the ordinary man who voted for you or supported you in some way or the other is living a challenged life, you know, and you can't be wanting to flaunt that.
Exactly.
So when you keep thinking about this, that look, it is the ordinary man, woman, and child that got me here. I am standing on their shoulders. It says to you that you have to remain humble, you know, and that's how I continue to live and operate my life throughout all of the years.
I want to talk about, for want of a better term, fresh blood. And viewers, bear with me. I know it seems as though I'm all over the place with my questions, but when you're talking to somebody like Chris Jones, it's easy to get carried away because he says something and then you pick up on that and then you run with it. Fresh blood, again, for want of a better term, in terms of young people, not only just in the entire party structure, but the GYSM. We all know the GYSM would have come in for criticisms over the year, even from, in some cases, warranted criticisms from right inside our own seniors, criticisms coming from outside, like, what are the young people of the GYSM doing? Do you believe that we have that environment to create a space for fresh blood, fresh ideas, new people, and actually giving them the opportunities to look, okay, PNCR is a vehicle. Once you are committed and this is what you want, and once you stay humble, it is a vehicle that can get you places and help you to do for others what folks did for you. Do we have the environment for fresh blood, especially in an age, and I did remember asking Comrade McAllister this last week, especially in an age where life has it, we're all after bread and butter issues, and then there are the little gadgets that we're so taken up with, social media and everything that happens there. Do we have a space and an environment for new young people coming into our party?
We always do. Yes, there is. Yes, fresh blood, fresh ideas are always welcome. But you have to first understand the dynamics of what you're about to get involved in.
Okay.
One may tend to believe that I can just simply join a political movement and because of my training or my knowledge on something, I can just say that this is what you need to do. Political work is a lot of sacrifices, a lot of groundwork. And most time, fresh blood, new ideas, new people fall into that folly, believing that they can just come, pull a chair at the head table and speak, and as one person would put, pontificate. But there is, and when it comes to the other aspect of the political work, the foot slogging, the house to house, door to door, passing a handbill in the hot sun on Saturday, Sunday, when otherwise they would have been engaged at the creek or at Giftland Mall, whatever the case be. Persons forget that aspect of it, and that is why many times, most of the young bloods fall prey to that, is that they come in and they want to focus on one aspect. And when they're called upon that, look, we have to go to the field, we have to verify the voters lists or whatever the case be, they're absent. And that is why when there's a call for higher office, their names are not reflected there. Because as I said before, it is about the work that you do on the ground, in the villages, in the community, and it is from Sunday to Sunday. There's in politics, there's no time, there's no day, there isn't a national holiday for politicians. It is constant. And unless you are prepared to sacrifice, and I want to emphasize the word sacrifice, you can speak the Queen's English and come with the best vision and so forth. But if that other aspect in terms of the work on the ground is not seen, in terms of you doing it, when it comes to calling persons to higher office, your name will be left off. And I mean, many times on television or radio, you would see young blood speaking and the song go, the song depart. Right? And an ordinary person out there would be like, this boy, this girl song good, he should go up for the. And then when the votes are cast within the party structure and those faces are not reflected, it angers the public. But as I said, the party membership vote for person based on the foot slogging.
Yeah, the people they can touch
That's
and
right.
feel and
That's
see.
right.
So in essence, when the lights turn off and the camera comes off, it's a different story. And it comes back to what you said about perception versus reality. Viewers, the time flew by so quickly, but I still have one other thing to ask Chris, and then I'm going to give him another opportunity, to push his bid for vice chairperson. I can't have Chris on this program and not talk about the importance of the family unit because he's one of the young persons who he's married, so he's a husband and he's a father of 3, 2 boys and 1 girl. Against that backdrop, at this time, what would you sit here and say that you would like to see? Because your children, their ages are very tender. In another 5-10 years, what would you like to see for them? And whether you become vice chairperson or not, which I'm hearing is highly unlikely, but what would you want for them and for other children? I'm not going to say young people here, I'm going to say children because they are children, and your contribution to that sort of development and growth.
All right. Well, definitely one parent or every parent dream wish is to ensure that there's food on the table for their children, there's a roof over their heads, there's an education environment in which their children can go to be educated and even take that further. That is the wish, that is the dream of any parent, and of course living in a safe environment. As being a member within the government is that I will continue to push along those lines. And as I said before, it is where you are at whatever stage in life, that's how you make decisions at many times. So for me as a father, a husband, is that I recognize that out there are thousands of husbands, mothers, single parents, and so forth. And these are the same dreams and aspirations that they have for their children. And that is why me, at that level, connected to that, I can speak with authority as it relates to that, as it relates to them.
Perfect. In about a minute, Chris, why should young people, why should the older folks of our party, the elders, our leaders, and so on, who sometimes we get very, and I like to admit this because, so there's no confusion. Our leaders who sometimes we get very angry with because, they're not doing things the way that we want it. But why should our young people, our elders in the party, our seniors, our leaders, why should they all not only support, but come the 19th, vote Chris Jones as one of the vice chairpersons? And viewers, just pause here. I'm just taking this opportunity to remind you that our party's constitution and structure provides for 2 vice chairpersons. Why should you be one of them?
All right. So essentially, I have had the opportunity over the past 19 years to learn, and every day I still continue to learn. I said to persons that there isn't any template that I can use to navigate how I operate as a member of the PNC or even as vice chairman. You learn every day. But I am confident that because of my experience over the number of years, because of my humility, because of my stick-to-itiveness and always remaining grounded with the people out there, is that I can represent their interests, I can champion their cause at the level of as vice chairman of the PNC. Essentially, at that level, it puts me closer to the decision-making body of the party, and ultimately that body speaks to government. And